everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Three Simple Men Making Their Way Through the Galaxy. As always, I'm Tom. With me is Ryan and Mike, and we are finishing up here with episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
So, right off the bat, so I guess we left off last episode with the the Jedi temple and them talking to Anakin and trying to determine whether or not he would be trained, and then we get the answer in the beginning of this one, right? That he shouldn't be trained. They're too worried. They haven't made up their mind. Qui-Gon gets a little rebellious and says he'll do it himself. Obi-Wan's good. He can move on. And then things get real at the at this Senate level. Yeah, we get right off the bat, we get the the announcement that Senator Palpatine has been nominated to run against the Supreme Chancellor at that time.
Which had Hailing Tillies of Alderaan, which is interesting because that's actually a different character, not Senator Bail Organa that we all know from the others. And then we had one other from Malastare. And well, Malastare, as we saw from the last episode, they're in pockets with the Trade Federation, seeing that they're like, oh yeah, we should appoint the commission to see if Queen Amidala was telling the truth. So you had one good, Palpatine, and then the bad, which was Malastare.
Now, Antilles is from the original trilogy too, right? I feel like he was a character in the OT.
Yes. I believe he might have been in episode 4 during the opening scene, possibly. I'd like that's what I wrote down on my notes too. It was like, is this the first reference to that character? Because
definitely
that name sounds so familiar.
Mm-hmm. We do get the line from Palpatine, a surprise for sure, but a welcomed one. Want to move on to Queen Amidala talking to Jar Jar and realizing that there's potential there.
Actually, I kind of want to revert back to what you said. I was just looking down on my notes, what I wrote down about Queen Amidala. And it's the fact that once Senator Palpatine was announced for Chancellor, Queen Amidala wanted to go back to Naboo and take the fight back and control her planet because she realized actions speak louder than words.
Definitely. And it leads, and that's great, Tom, because it leads right into, and it might jump a little bit ahead, but what a strategist, She comes up, she catches that, hey, you know what? There's this whole part of the planet that we're not thinking about, and they're going to want to protect their hometown too. They go, and then they have to find the Gungans, and she gets Jar Jar to help, but then, and she's smart enough to realize that they just want to be treated equally, and not looked down on. So she, bends the knee, to them, and then after revealing. So we can't gloss over that. The big reveal that
surprise!
Queen Amidala's handmaid, Padme, is in fact Queen Amidala. And it looked like obviously her head of security was fully aware because he wasn't surprised. Neither were.
Oh, by the way, I just want to say this. Shout out to Keira Knightley, because that was her bodyguard.
Yeah. So we get that shock, but then moving on, like directly the planning of the invasion, like there's a good plan.
Yeah, I just want to say this as well. It's like going back a little bit too, as well. It's like when she revealed herself as being a queen, you saw Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, but like look at each other, like they knew, because they trusted in their senses in the Force. They're like, no, she truly the queen, because they're.
Oh, you think they knew?
I think they knew.
I don't know. They looked at each other like that they didn't know, but they weren't surprised, if that makes sense. Like they were kind of like, okay, like it definitely seemed like
I mean, you would think that Qui-Gon would pick up on it during his time in Tatooine when he had the back and forth with Padme. So I would probably agree with Ryan on this one. It's just like we didn't know, but it just, she got us.
yeah,
Okay,
I
then
feel
I'm
like they were
gonna.
impressed, but I don't think they knew. I think because Anakin was clearly absolutely shocked.
Okay, you know what? I'll just say this. I'll give you this win. I'm just gonna say Qui Gon knew. Obi-Wan was just like, huh. I guess I'll give you $5.
All right. Hey, we don't have to agree on everything on this this podcast, video cast. Um, yeah, you think they knew? I think they didn't,
Yeah.
who knows?
But going into the their strategy to reclaim Naboo, I thought it was pretty much one of it's like historically speaking, win the hearts and minds of people, and that's what Queen Amidala did with the Gungans. Like, you know what, we're not smarter than you. We're equal as you as well to get them on their side because they had the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
this is like a military method in the sense where just like the Gungans are a distraction. We're the infiltration where we're just gonna just sneak in and just do what we need to do
Yeah,
and
cut
just
the head off the snake.
exactly.
I will say, I believe it was Qui-Gon who pointed out that there were some big risks, and I think the obvious one was the aerial assault on the droid control ship, because realistically, that would have failed if it wasn't for an accident.
Oh
you
yeah.
know, Anakin gets shot.
I know what you're saying because I wrote this down. This is going to be a new segment for this, like because we have our hot takes and deep dive quotes and all that stuff. Like, how about a what if? What if that tank didn't miss Anakin while he's flying out of that hangar?
Well, what if the ship that actually shot him did miss? Because Anakin wasn't planning on going inside the droid control ship. He gets clipped. They get shot. And he's like, R2, we're going down, and he crashes inside. If he didn't get hit, if he dodged that, he would have been with everyone else still flying around shooting at a shield doing nothing.
Yeah.
You know? So definitely the force was definitely on his side. He got very lucky. I have a question because we can kind of wrap up the ship talk too. Do you think anybody knows that was Anakin who did it? We don't
No.
really get like
I
a
honestly don't think anyone did.
like we get the reaction of like the rest of the other pilots, like, oh, look at that, one of ours coming out the inside. And well, obviously, which we'll get into, Qui-Gon doesn't get to talk to. Like, do you think he was just too afraid to mention anything? Like, was like, I assume he didn't go back and tell Obi-Wan, guess what I did, and maybe when they landed and they're like, go.
Yeah, they were probably
I
all
mean,
shocked.
if I'm in a fighter jet and I'm up there fighting and a ship comes out, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like looking at the call sign, whatever name might be on the side of that ship, and when we land, I'm running up to the person like Top Gun style, like, yeah, like, so did they just all run up and it was just this kid and they were all like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Anakin was on comms the entire time. If anything, he was just talking to R2, just making sure he understood how to fly the ship. And yeah, I don't think anyone knew until probably when they landed back in the hangar. And they're like, "Oh crap!" It's like this 9-year-old
I
blew up the
feel
right
like
control ship.
I feel like it's a much needed scene that I'd love to see that we just
I feel
didn't
like
get.
someone would have been like, "Don't we have child labor laws or something?"
It's
God
not just that.
dang, man.
How old's Padme?
She's like 15 at the time, I think. I don't
So,
know,
so
honestly.
not just a
I'll look
15-year-old
that up if you don't
queen, but
mind.
but a 15-year-old military strategist that puts the whole thing together too. So the youngins definitely come to play
I
in
mean,
this one.
at this point, who knows,
I mean, by that time too, like, I mean, yeah, they knew Anakin was going for the cockpit, but yeah, I mean, who would have expected Anakin to take off? And I don't think everyone knows. Oh, hey, we got one more reinforcement coming in. It's like I don't think anyone knew. Um, but yeah, I
So,
think Anakin was 9, and I'm curious what you find out, Tom, if how old Padme was when she ruled Naboo.
Guys, I already have I looked it up.
What do we got?
Amidala makes her first appearance in The Phantom Menace. She is introduced as recently elected a 14-year-old Queen of Naboo.
Wow.
She's 14, Anakin's 9. All right.
5-year difference. Yeah.
Still creepy. Just putting that out there. All right, so I know we're gonna get into the best. I mean, there's the best part of this part of the movie is coming up. I don't want to get to it yet. I want to finish up kind of everything else and then dive into, we'll call it the duel.
Because I know which character you're talking about, and I kind of want to go back towards Maul being there presence wise. It's pretty much it was him for to make sure that the trade, like, I felt like there was two different things while he's there. He's like, he's making sure everything's being done towards Sidious's desires and wishes and whims and stuff like that. And then he's also there as a presence, like, if, you know, they end up coming back, you know, maybe as a thought of, if Sidious thought of the ideas, like, if the Jedi and Queen Amidala come back, then it's time to make ourselves truly present towards both the Jedi that was on Tatooine. That way, if you can get anything done, then we can make our presence known, where we'll make the Jedi start to question themselves. It's a big food for thought right there.
Yeah. So I want to touch on, before we get again into the duel, one, I want to hit my quotes. And this time I actually have 3 quotes because I feel like they're all kind of relevant. They all tie into each other. They're from 3 different characters. The first quote is from Yoda earlier on. He says, "Clouded this boy's future is," when referring to Anakin. So he states right then and there, like, he doesn't know. Like, you know, he's trying to see this kid's future, and it's clouded, which would lead us to believe that, you know, we assume he doesn't see his future at all, going forward, because he's, you know, something is blinding his foresight, or someone. Then we get Obi-Wan to Qui-Gon when he argues with him, and he says, "The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?" Again, we know, yeah, he is. We just haven't gotten there yet. And then the final quote I want to pull in is Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan, which is a throwback to an earlier episode of Tales of the Jedi too. "But you're a much wiser man than I am." So Qui-Gon says that to Obi-Wan, which is interesting because, you know, Obi-Wan says, "The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?" And then Qui-Gon says, "You're much wiser than I am. Yet I'm still going to ignore what you're saying. I'm going to then make you promise to me that you're going to train the boy," which we'll get into. But it was just very interesting that, like, you know, it seems like everybody, there's definitely, whether it's a full inkling that there's something bad coming, it's at least clouded, which that alone seems to be scaring them, because maybe they're not used to having somebody's future clouded with their, whatever we want to call it, foresight or connection to the living force. So I thought that was interesting. Those were my quotes there. I don't know if you guys have any comments about the quotes or want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when it came to Obi-Wan kind of disagreeing with him, because we're going back towards Qui-Gon and previous episodes of Tales of Jedi. Qui-Gon's master was Dooku, who kind of saw things in a different way, which led an impression towards Qui-Gon, which is leading towards what it is now, because he believes that Anakin is the chosen one, or the Force led him to lead him there. And then Obi-Wan is just more like, he's more about book to book, you know, being a Jedi, you know, because he's still the Padawan. He still wants to do the right way, do the right things as a Jedi. And then as we go on later, I think, during the military strategy before taking back Naboo, you hear him say, I'm sorry, Master, for, down you. It's one of those things where it's just like, in the heat of the moment, it's just like you want to believe it, but at the same time, you don't want to disappoint your master. You want to follow the code, but you know what? Your master does make good points, but it's hard to, and he sticks up for you in front of the council saying you're ready for the trials. I believe I read a book before it about Obi-Wan. I forgot what it was. I'll look it up and I'll bring up the title next time. But it was about Obi-Wan as a young a Padawan or a pre-Padawan before he actually went to Qui-Gon, and he was somewhat arrogant, or like he was thick-headed in a way.
More rebellious than Qui. I think I remember as like Jedi Adventures or something, because those were like the non-canon stuff back in the day.
Yeah, that might be it, Mike. That might be it. Thank you. But yeah, now he's starting to realize, like, I understand now. Thank you, Master. It's and just going back to the Jedi too, it's just pretty much like when they're just sitting on the council, they're just sitting there and they're just dictating, it's like he's too old, he's too there's so much his future's so cloudy and all that stuff. There's so much anger, fear, and all that stuff, which I think will lead to my hot take later, guys. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I would say with the quotes, I mean, there was one that jumped out was Queen Amidala early on, just saying that, part of the reason why she wanted to go back was that the Republic no longer functions. I pray you bring sanity and compassion back. So, like, yeah, she could stay around in Coruscant, but like, what's going to get done, even with the vote of the Supreme Chancellor, and even if there was a new one, it wouldn't be enough to stop the Trade Federation. That kind of was like a reason why she had to go back. And then just looking at what Qui-Gon did with the council, he didn't even bow, he didn't even respect them when, all the back and forth that he had. You saw Obi-Wan and Anakin bow, but then he just walked out the door. And then, yeah, no, I agree with the whole send off. But, that was like the last time Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon had like a conversation with one another, and just throwing back to, Dooku to Qui-Gon, like, you're a much wiser man than I am. I thought that was really nice too. And then obviously with the Sith in the background, let them make the first move. So once they saw that, you know, they made the move to attack the tanks and move into the palace, that's when Darth Maul made his move to go in and surprise them where they did. But I would just say one thing before we get into the actual duel. Do we want to just jump into the Gungan battle very quickly?
Before that, I want to hop into something you just mentioned, and stop me if this is your deep dive, but
Okay.
when they go into the hangar to rescue the people before we get the reveal of our Sith, one of the pilots gets shot. And did you
Oh my
notice?
god, I know what you're going
Yeah,
with. I know exactly what you're going with.
I had a feeling you were going to go with that, and hopefully I have a second one that
Okay.
pocket. So
Ryan,
go right ahead. Take it away, Ryan.
So we get our Wilhelm scream.
I knew
So,
it. I knew it. I knew it.
Those of our viewers that don't know, the Wilhelm scream is actually a stock scream from like the 50s, I want to say, that has been used in not just Star Wars, not even just George Lucas and Spielberg stuff, but I know it's in Indiana Jones. It's obviously in all the Star Wars movies. It's been used in sci-fi action movies for years, and it's a very, like, we'll post it up on socials if I can get it stock, so it should be able to get it for the gram. But
it's a historical cinema sound.
it is the Wilhelm scream. I don't know if somebody has it readily accessible on their phone to play. Maybe
hold it up. Well, I
got my phone out.
I didn't pull up the audio, but
no.
Yeah, Ryan, you're right with the first time it was referenced. It began in 1951 with the Western film Distant Drums, and then it got expanded upon to other movies, and eventually it found its way into Star Wars. A New Hope back in 1977,
I
and
got random facts locked
yeah,
away in here, you know.
that was a good one.
I know it's been around for a while. Yeah,
You know
so it's
what's
cool.
funny?
It's
Because
cool
I
to hear
wrote that
that.
down as my notes because I knew
Me
you were gonna
too.
go that because I knew you are such a movie buff, and I'm like, I know for a fact he's gonna pull out the Wilhelm scream.
Well, and it made me wonder, was it present in any of our earlier Tales of the Jedi and we missed it? I don't think
Um,
so.
it's probably like more
But
mainstream with the actual movies themselves, but I guess we'll just have to keep an eye out
we'll
for that.
definitely, you mean an ear? I'll have to keep an ear out definitely,
We watch
and
as we
try to
watch the
see
other
how many
ones.
Wilhelm screams we can point out.
That's gonna
So
be, yeah,
with
because I
that,
think between that and I have a bad feeling about this, we're gonna have to like come up with a list of things that we have to track, like lists is done in each movie. So yeah,
who wants to
definitely
be
let's
the
add Wilhelm
tracker?
screams to that list.
I guess I could be the tracker, huh? I guess I need another job, so maybe I'll do that. So
I'm
right now
looking
we're
it
at
up, man. It's like
Wilhelm scream. We're at what, 1?
Yep,
And we're at, I got a bad feeling about this.
one.
Who said it?
Obi-Wan.
Okay, and we're at 1, and it's Obi-Wan. All right, I will keep track. So we have that. All right, so Mike, take it away. Let's go into that Gungan battle quickly.
Yes, I mean with the Gungan battle, obviously you're dealing with hundreds, maybe thousands of battle droids versus an entire Gungan army. And to like the strategy, it was just a diversion. Like you didn't really see them on the offensive. They just had the shield generator up, and you had different tech. Where I mean, you had droids with the blasters or shields. You had the big shield generator. I think those creatures were called Fambas. And then their weapons were very primitive too, because you saw like spears, shields, lances, and catapults. So it was very different. And once they deployed the battle droids and they were able to wade through way through the shield generator, then it became really messy out there. Um, and then obviously, like back in the day when we saw Jar Jar getting attacked by that half of the battle droid, that was pretty funny. You just like see him going around, just getting caught in the wire, um, hitting shooting 2 droids and then hitting a droideka in the legs. Like from all the times that we see Jedi have trouble beating Droideka, and then Padme, Captain Panaka, and all those crew had a problem. But you just have Jar Jar here shooting a Droideka on the leg, and it goes down. It's like, wow, it's like if only were that easy. But
Me accidentally shooting. You gotta put that in there. It's definitely
yeah.
accidentally shooting the droideka in the leg.
But my deep dive, I'll jump ahead for this one.
Okay.
Actually, it revolves around Battle Droid 1138. And I don't know if you guys saw 1138. It was one of the droids that Jar Jar plucked on the head.
And his head just falls off.
Yeah, but it's also like an Easter egg back to one of George Lucas's early works, and I think that's another reference that we'll have to keep an eye out for because the 1138 was a short student film that George Lucas did back in the day. It was called THX or Labyrinth THX 1138 4AB, and then he reworked that into his first theatrical release, which was THX 1138. So that was actually my deep dive.
Oh wait, it
Um,
was THX.
yeah,
So that's like a production company, right? The
yeah, and I
THX
think
that we
that's like the
always.
stereo sound or like it's like
Yeah.
proprietary Lucasfilm technology.
oh
Yeah,
wait. What?
Yeah, I never knew
Wow.
that. That's cool. I had some information on like the old like an old some other directors like student films and stuff, but not George Lucas's. That's crazy. What was that about?
let's see. I'll have to pull it up. I believe it was like a sci-fi film.
Makes
Uh,
sense.
it was released back in 1971, a social science fiction film, and George Lucas worked with Francis Ford Coppola. And Brian, seeing that you are the big film buff, that's definitely a big name that people probably.
Not just that, alumni of the college I went to.
Mhm.
Francis Ford Coppola was a Hofstra graduate
Shout out to Hofstra.
and director of The Godfather.
Shout out to The Godfather.
But yeah, this was actually George Lucas's first release in the film back in 1971, and eventually it led up to George Lucas releasing Star Wars in 1977. But yeah, it's just a different, it's it was something filmed in the future, and it probably I'd say a different universe compared to what we're all living in now. But yeah, it was just pretty nice throwback that they did there, and um,
What was the number again?
1138.
1138.
That sounds familiar. Is that the name of the? No, it's not the trash compactor. No,
Well, I think that's just another thing we're gonna have to
it's
track.
another number. Yeah, some of the numbers are other Easter eggs.
1138. Oh, it might have been prisoner transfer from cell block 1138.
1138.
Yeah.
That might be it. Yes, thank you.
So yeah, that was all I wanted to say, and yeah, like talking about the Gungan battle was what wanted me to lead to my deep dive, since I had the Wilhelm scream written down, but I knew Ryan, the movie buff, would reference that first. So you shot first, my friend.
Oh, you got me with the 1138. So I wrote that down too as our tracking. So we'll.
I just
we'll
want to
have
say
keep
this.
an eye on those three.
I respect the fact that we all wrote down the Wilhelm scream. That is so like it to anyone out there who's listening and watching. If you love movies, period, this is such an iconic sound effect, sound scream. It is just you recognize it right off the bat. It is just unrecognizable. It's recognizable easily within a second.
So with that, fellas, is it time to get into the fun part?
I'm ready.
Where the fun begins.
So we get the reintroduction of Darth Maul, the encounter. Qui-Gon says, "We'll handle this." Everyone else exits stage left, and we get the first awesome reveal. We finally get to see the double blade. Plus, we get the freaking music, which, Star Wars music has always been iconic. And, the original trilogy with the main theme, the Imperial March, you had all these songs that were just so iconic. And then with the prequels, I'm sure some people were worried, nervous that they weren't going to live up. I know they were. But the Duel of Fates song that plays during this back and forth, because you get the battle of the Jedi and Sith, but then you also get the battle in the sky, it's all the battles happening, and you just have this Duel of Fate music playing, which has become such an iconic song. But Darth Maul double bladed, and they go at it, and they really, really go at it. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan right into it. Just what do we think? I mean, awesome
well,
fight.
I just want to
probably
say
top 3 lightsaber battles of all time.
I kind of want to say this. Well, a few things. First of all, first time we see a new creature or species in Star Wars, a Zabrak, or
A non-humanoid, yeah.
non-humanoid.
Gungan, yeah.
And then when they remove their robes, it's like a Western / samurai like mix of a showdown. Like, this is how we're going to do it. We're not going to use blasters. We're not going to use this. It's just about swords now at this point.
Like Ryan talked about earlier too, just the way everyone clears, it's like, oh crap, like shit's about to go down. So
go away. We'll handle this.
Mhm.
But yeah, like you said, the music is fire, is exciting, and the way they fight is just so fast, and be still my beating heart. Jesus, it's just I still can't. It's so awesome. It truly is.
And I mean, I think it's pretty obvious the way the battle unfolds that Darth Maul at that time was probably a better lightsaber wielder than both of them. I mean, obviously he takes out Qui-Gon, unfortunately, and he pretty much takes out Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan manages to catch himself. He disarms him. So Obi-Wan has no lightsaber, loses it, falls down in a pit, or whatever that ventilation shaft is, hanging on. And I guess, Maul just didn't expect, like, Obi-Wan won because of the Force, right? I mean, he gets him with the Force flip, lightsaber catch.
Yeah.
Jump.
That if it was
pull,
just a straight hand to hand, I think Darth Maul would have probably killed him.
I think
right?
yeah, Darth Maul was stronger lightsaber handed combat, but was in a sense weaker in the Force. Like you saw him do a
Mentally.
Force push, but he didn't really do much. But we've seen Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan do a little bit more with the Force because they use it really as an ally, and I think the Sith use it as a weapon.
I do want to also point out the little juxtaposition that I noticed this time. So when they're stuck behind the force fields, Qui-Gon turns off his lightsaber, gets
Red
down on his
lightning,
knees.
nice.
He does like a force meditation or something going on, battle meditation maybe. Apparently it doesn't work. But then the alternative is after. So obviously you got to assume there's a little anger there. But after Qui-Gon is killed and Obi-Wan's stuck behind it, instead of lightsaber off, meditating, he's got his lightsaber out and he's like jumping up, he's like bouncing. He's like pumping himself up. I really caught it this time where he was like, all right, let's go. Like it was like a pump up. Like, and it seemed immature. It seemed less, more like a kid. He seemed younger, obviously. And he goes out there with rage. I mean, he comes out
yeah,
fighting fast to the point where I think because of it, he gets disarmed and almost loses. And then it's because when he's hanging there in that last minute, he kind of recenters himself and he uses the force and he remembers where he is. He remembers his training. But at first, he goes out there like a boxer. I mean, it was very cool. It was very cool to watch. It always is cool to watch.
yeah, and it's pretty much one of those things where it's just like he was trying to bring out the anger, where it's just like he's trying to have Obi-Wan lose by not using the Force as an ally, but using it as a weapon and turning towards hate instead of, prosperity. And which is going to lead me to my hot take after what you said is that once before Qui-Gon died, he said train Anakin. And for us, it's more of, and what we've understand of Qui-Gon, do you think Qui-Gon would have been a good master for Anakin because he started off as a Jedi late? Like,
so I've heard this before that the duel of fates is the duel for Anakin. And maybe I have probably heard it from you, Tom. And it's it was basically if Qui-Gon were to survive and train, Anakin would have been the chosen one that would have been good. And because a young, not really ready Obi-Wan trained him instead, he fell to the dark side. So that's kind of the it was all about that battle was his fate and who was going to survive. I don't know. I mean, it goes into that the whole what if scenario.
yeah,
What if Obi-Wan died and Qui-Gon killed Darth Maul or maimed Darth Maul. For now he's dead. But very interesting. It's I don't know.
then
I don't
after
know if he would have done better.
we see a pyro funeral for Qui-Gon, and then as we get to the end, we see the celebration and of not just peace and between Naboo and the two societies, but we get to see the Jedi Council. But I think we should also go back to, I think, an important detail between Yoda and Mace Windu. What do you think?
Are we the discussion that they have briefly?
Yes.
Which, though everyone's celebrating, we have this scary, because we know, obviously, at this point as viewers, not the way we're watching it, because we're doing it chronologically, but for viewers that had already seen the original trilogy, we know where this is going. And we know, and they know that because they play it towards that with the music and going Palpatine, and I guess, they haven't said that it's him, but him as Darth Sidious, it's pretty obvious if you're looking at it that it's Palpatine under there. And yeah, we know, like, there's one was killed. There's always two. Who'd they get? The master or the apprentice,
And it's funny because I'll just end it on this. Someone I've read about something like if you play the celebration theme at the end on Naboo and you play it slow, it's supposed to sound like Darth Sidious theme.
Is it? I thought it was. I think it's. Isn't it I thought it was the Imperial March, like sped up.
I thought it was supposed to be like the Sith or Darth Sidious,
Something like
maybe
that.
something like that. Yeah.
I think I heard that too.
We'll look another time.
I'll have to try that out, but yeah, just going to like back to the celebration, I did catch Mace Windu's lightsaber and did not match up to what we saw in Tales of the Jedi. So I mean, again, I don't know if like it was blue at the time or maybe he still kept his purple, but definitely a different lightsaber hilt.
So I did a little research since our discussion about that, and I did see that apparently the gold that's on the hilt is something that's only allowed to be put on the hilt by Jedi Masters. So his hilt not being gold entails, and then getting the gold added is something that he couldn't do until he had become a Jedi Master on the Council.
Yeah, I would say before we conclude like the portion of episode 1, just wanted to just go back a little bit and just talk about the duel, because like some of the things I saw was just the way Darth Maul was fighting. Because like Ryan, Tom, to your points, he was definitely the better lightsaber fighter, but I think with the way he was going about it, he was trying to divide Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon up as much as he could, because he was like kicking or probably mostly kicking them over to the side, and then I think at one point with the way Darth Maul angled his blade, he was able to knock Qui-Gon off to the wall. So you saw like different opportunities, but I think with Darth Maul, he really wanted to go after Qui-Gon since he probably wanted some payback from their first duel in Tatooine, because most of the time it's him and Qui-Gon going through it. And what you talked about earlier with, everyone's different reactions when they were down at the wall, like Darth Maul was trying to like dominate, find a way to like break Qui-Gon's calmness and, meditation back into it. And yeah, he's definitely a different fighter when Obi-Wan knocks off the first half of the blade. And yeah, he probably got a little too arrogant like Obi-Wan did, with just the way he was just like slicing in, just waiting for him to make his move. And unfortunately, it was too late for him, and he paid the price for it. One of the things I did catch too, on when the ship touches down and the Jedi Council descends, like I'm not sure like if I caught Mace Windu or like Samuel L. Jackson going down. I thought maybe I caught a stunt double, but then I heard maybe there was, someone else that we might be seeing later on in the series. So I'll open that up to you guys to see if you guys caught that as well.
So I know for a fact it's not Samuel L. Jackson. I remember seeing that, like, it's supposed to be him. It was like he wasn't available for filming at that day or whatever it was. So they have another actor, like kind of like a stand-in. But it's obvious if you actually look that it's not in fact him. So I've heard, so I looked because I heard rumors that people are saying, oh, maybe this is another Jedi that we meet in a future thing, which we will get into a while from now. And when we hit the Mandalorian. But yeah, I guess it is supposed to be Mace Windu, but they just, had someone stand in and didn't really focus on him too much for that end Naboo celebration.
And we were missing one other council member, and
yes,
none other than Yaddle.
Yes, so we are going to, I guess, touch on that in our next episode. With that, Tom, anything else before Mike closes us out tonight?
Never trust a man that's red in the face with horns and a double-bladed red lightsaber. That man will mess up your day.
Well, everyone, that's a wrap. Thank you everyone for joining Three Simple Men making their way through the galaxy. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe, and come back next week for some more Tales of the Jedi. May the Force be with you always.